Tok Stret, we talk about the issues that affect you. We ask the questions that is of your interest. We provide you the information. We provide you the answers. You have a choice. You decide.
But looking back over the last 40 years, I can only say that somehow we have been very successful. It wasn't easy. This country became independent because of the wave of decolonization taking place at that time in the 60s. The wave that took most of the African countries were swept into self-government independence. And decolonization was very, very strong at that time. And of course, Somare was the leader of the team at that time, became chief minister. We were very lucky to have Australia controlling this country at that time. Australia is really not an experienced country on colonization. England, yes. The British, they had colonies right throughout the world. Almost 3/4 of the world came under the British control. But in Australia, it's only 1 or 2. So the Australian leaders were very sensitive at the time to make sure that they are answerable to the United Nations Trusteeship Council. The Somare wanted independence because the Pango Party at that time was the majority party, and it was the first party formed. To take over the control of this country. And the People's Progress Party, which I led, we formed a coalition with them, and we all had a common goal. We were thinking about independence, but no country can get independence without a financial structure. You must have a central bank to control this country. So really, Somare gave me no time. I was the finance minister, and you can say that he was the captain, and I was the chief engineer. So we were swept by the currents of time. And I remember once we made up the decision to be self-governing and independence, I led the team with Sir David Hay, the administrator at that time, to the United Nations Trusteeship Council. And I stood up for the first time, Elizabeth. It wasn't easy. No one lusima, me mangi kanakata solon desplatayama. I don't even know what independence is, to tell you. It is just a word. To be able to look after yourself. But the ramification of independence is really completely new to me. But I was asked to lead a team together with Sir David Hay, the administrator of Papua New Guinea at that time, to the United Nations, and I got up, and it was my turn to speak, and I had to address the Trusteeship Council, and I tell you, Tuat Lumi come up, na. Lumi, I don't know how to say it, but I was really shaking. Huh? Don't forget, that was the first address I've ever made to an international body. And to see all these skyrockets at the in America. Those were strange things. I thought it's the ninth heaven. So those were the times. It was not easy, as I said. So we were swept. We were moved along by the decolonization committee. So Papua New Guinea was going through, and Somare was captaining his ship, and he was pointing in that direction. So I had to go and start the engine to make sure we take over the Reserve Bank of Australia, to control the monetary policy of this country. Then all of a sudden we realized no country can be independent without its own currency. When I want to introduce the currency, it was not easy. It was very difficult. On Line Blow Highlands, especially Sir Tayabal was in opposition at that time. I know you all know Sir Tayabal, a very prominent and a very responsible person, and I don't blame him. He wanted to be a little bit slower because all too spread. If we introduce our own currency may not be able to buy goods from Australia and other countries. Oli pret, tapos yung may got money belum itu belayet. But no na buy rice, no na buy tin before for corner tin meat long Australian or not plus something in our clothes. So they were a very responsible opposition. And they want to take the matter slowly. But I was caught by the decision of the government to set the date for self-government in 1973 and then 75 independence. So I just had to move along. Now you must have it too. I had no education at all. I have never been to an economic school or a financial school to learn anything about accounting, etc., to set up the central bank. They are no easy thing to do. So I worked very closely with Sir Henry Toroba, Sir Henry Toroba. He was brought up with the Reserve Bank of Australia. So I worked very closely with him. I sent my staff to England, to Africa, to America, to Australia, to see if they can bring in the kind of legislation that will set up the Central Bank of Papua New Guinea. And then so I set up the Central Bank of Papua New Guinea, and I took over the Reserve Bank of Australia. Then we had a bank, the Bank of Papua New Guinea. That is the central bank. Then we can regulate and control all the other banks, like the Bank of New South Wales and in Westpac, Bank of New South Wales, and the National Bank. So I set them a timetable. Once I had the central bank, the Bank of Papua New Guinea, I was then in a position to regulate. So I took away the license of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and then I introduced the Papua New Guinea Banking Corporation. All getting desplazado anyway. Very difficult time. I told you already that I had very little experience in that. The only experience I had was when I was a cooperative officer. I used to go to cooperative training center, and I learned a little bit about accounting and how to look after books. No, lig something to all on place. Huh? I never went into the central bank, the regulation, all these things. But looking back, in hindsight, it seemed that somehow we were lucky. We've been able to do everything right. in order to get the confidence of the people from the highlands, I used the currency, and I designed the currency. If you look at the currency now, where you're looking, Mark Plong Million Bay Star, Mark Plong Altolai Star, Mark Plong New Island Missy Star, so it Toya Plong Papua Star Plong Million Bay. So I used the introduction of the currency to unite Papua New Guinea. And the word kina, also you miss out kina, long solvara blumito blala. But the word kin is a Malpa language, meaning the store of wealth. Kina. So it seems to be falling into place, huh? Right? Kina. Now toya is an arm shell they used in the Trobriand island 120 years ago. Samplamani by Mary. I got some dog's teeth and all these, but also a toya plus buatao. You know, buatao is boy. So there was a historical thing. So kina and toya. And when you look at the currency notes, you will see yourself, your own province, or we didn't have province at that time, your place, the design of the artifacts and everything that resemble you, resemble your background. So in that way, I was able to unite Papua and New Guinea together. So the introduction of the currency was one of the most intensive exercise ever undertaken by any government from the time from colonial to the time of self-government and independence. And I don't want to say too much about it, but I really worked my guts out. I worked my guts out to get us here. So the way to get the confidence of our people, I introduced the kina and toya on a dual currency period. The dual currency mean I put Australian, because we were using the Australian dollar, and the kina. I want to introduce it, but people are frightened. It may not be able to buy goods. So I put the parity, meaning the value of the kina, equal to the Australian dollar, and they trade side by side. So that when you take the kina to the store, you can buy one kina good, $1 good. You know? And then all of a sudden, Papua New Guinea now felt confident. They were very confident in our currency. Hey, kina belum itu lah, strong one from Australia, yeah. So as they put the kina in, I took the Australian dollar out. I keep on removing the Australian out of circulation. Sampla Australian man, sampla Chinese too. They hide the Australian dollar underneath the baby bassinet. And only carry me go. We know, I know everything, but I let them go because it didn't mean I want to get the Australian dollar out of the system. 6 months later, I revalued the kina. So by 5%. So the Australian we were at parity when I introduced it on a 1-to-1. 6 months later, I appreciated the kina, and then all of a sudden, those people who took the money out felt they've lost a lot, because now the kina is worth 5% above the Australian. So it was a very intensive period of working how we can get the financial setting of a country to be able to back up independence. Independence without the financial structure capable of sustaining itself is meaningless. It's not independent. So I'm pleased to tell you tonight that I've been very lucky. Probably the only person in the world that have ever set up the central bank, set up our own Papua New Guinea Banking Corporation, introduced the currency, and all the policy that have been revaluation, devaluation, closing the bank for 1 week in 1994, and floating the kina. All these policies were made by me. And it's still relevant today, and it hasn't changed from that time on. We didn't have any money spare at all to worry about the sovereign wealth fund. You know, the first independent budget of this country, I had to crawl to Australia to give me only 121 million. And our total budget was only 350 million. You're from Bougainville. Bougainville helped us a lot. Bougainville constitute a big share of revenue to the nation, and we were just able to jump over that bar, the high jump. We were just able to jump over it. There was no money spare. And to get the independence budget, and I remember very clearly to get that independence budget, I had to negotiate with Andrew Peacock. Andrew Peacock was the foreign minister at that time. Me and I don't want to tell you where we were. We were in the Hilton Hotel in Melbourne, and actually it was in the restroom. He was on one side and I was on the one side. And he yelled at me because Andrew was my age. Huh? And young man, long time ago. Elizabeth, is it? Alice. You know, he was a very flamboyant foreign minister, Andrew Peacock. Huh? So he yelled at me, "Hey, Julius, tell me exactly what you want." And he was in the restroom and I was on the other side. And I said, "Andrew, I just want 125 million because I don't want any feds. Feds will create, distortion in our budget." Australian assistance was over 50% of our total budget. You know, we play crawl, yeah. You know, also now this the young politicians of today, they got a big plate full and they just have to decide how to eat it up. We got just a little bit and we got to choose where we're going to put this money to keep this young little nuclear country of us going. It's a completely different world altogether. So it was very tough, very tough. Anybody that tells you it was easy, they got it all wrong. It was very tough because at one stage the oil price went down, inflation went up, protests coming in. Hey, mi planos, I stop. Some of these young Turks now who are now in parliament, they used to protest against that. Now only pilim now, only minister now, only pilim now. We had to go through all this. And you mentioned about sovereign wealth fund. We did not have any spare money to even think about it. Today, the country is thriving with mining, with oil, gas, and all these things. You know, it's very luxurious. We have bountiful revenue coming in. If we use it wisely, we would have a lot of money into the sovereign wealth fund. But you know, sovereign wealth fund is really just a fund that set aside surplus for the rainy day. Yeah, you know the old saying, when the sun is shining, it's the time for you to repair the roof. So the sun is shining now. Put away the money for the rainy day. We didn't have any money to put away for the last 40 years. It's only now. Now, in the last 3 years, LNG come up, oil price is good, gold is there, Lihir is big, Pogra, everything coming together. We are probably one of the biggest, growth, extractive industry and wealth probably in the world. The rate of growth of Papua New Guinea was very fast in the last few years. And that also poses a lot of problems. When you have plenty, you don't look after it. So the government, in its good sense, talk about putting some money for the sovereign wealth fund is really to protect future government so that in the event of a rainy day, they can pick it out of the fund to supplement the budget. I say, we are now operating like Robin Hood in reverse. You know, Robin Hood used to steal from the rich and give to the poor. We are now stealing from the poor and give to the rich. You know, all our infrastructure in the rural areas are not, have not really improved, and yet we are spending so much money in Port Moresby, in Lae, and the influx of migrants into there. Now they're trying to break up squatter settlement. But who is the cause of it? The government is the cause of it, because we have pumped so much money in to those areas, and the bright lights just attract people from all over the countryside into Port Moresby, no jobs, no anything. And they say Port Moresby is a crime fest city. Truly. But who made it? We did. We are the government. We created an environment that made Port Moresby to be a jobless, crime-infested city. I would have done a little bit different, but then, I'm an old-timer. I would not have spent so much on the infrastructure in Port Moresby, or I would not have spent so much. I mean, the athletes will hate me, but I'm more an athletic person than they. I played a lot of sports in my time. But for the good of the nation, I thought we were spending too much on the games. And we set the standard so high, no Pacific countries can ever aspire to be on that benchmark. Sometimes you may think you're doing the right thing. You set yourself so high a standard. You just imagine countries like Tuvalu, Kiribati, and all the other small countries in the Pacific. We sort of pat ourselves on the back and said, we've won so many gold. But when you really look at it, Papua New Guinea alone has bigger population than the whole of the Pacific countries put together. Do you know? We should win probably more gold. At least 60% of the gold should belong to us by population alone. Fiji is only 1/10 of Papua New Guinea. We're 7.5 million. They're just 1 million or so. See, so all these countries put together now are not as big as Papua New Guinea population. And we set such a high standard. Misem long. If you ask another country to do it, they got to try to do it at the level that we did it. It's not going to be easy. The significance really, it's the dedication, commitment of the members at that time. Miplanos, I think too much long. At least I don't think we thought too much about personal wealth. We dedicate ourselves for the common good. We were selfless. And because we made a commitment to take Papua New Guinea to independence, we want success. So I think the significant achievement was dedication, hard work, determination, and steering this country in a course of a destiny that's going to be stable. And we never really fought for power. You know, we had a coalition government. Pangu Party and People's Progress Party joined together and formed what I regarded as a stable government. But that government at that time was always checked, because if you're no good, you'll get kicked out in 6 months' time by a vote of no confidence. So we are accountable to the people, accountable to our performance. So we think that the greatest thing that we have achieved was a common determination by all those people, Sir John Guys, Albert Marikiki, Somare, Rumen Tareka, Yambaki Okuk came in not too far, later. But they were selfless men. We were not money conscious. And probably that was the greatest success for that period, self-government to independence, and many years thereafter. Money was not the issue. The standard of living of the people was paramount. And because we made a commitment for independence, we want success. We were looking for success, not wealth. And the wealth is in the hands of the people more than the state. A lot can be done. And they're doing it in different ways. This DSIP, now Olga the Desplaya, if they control it a little bit better, the DSIP, the discretionary fund that they give. You know, in my time, the discretionary funds was only 5,000. You know, now it's 10 million. You know, and I think a lot of members use it wisely, but a lot of us don't use it wisely. The problem we now have is this. It's not about, the parliament is no longer about making good legislation for the good of our people. It is really about money. Money has become the real issue now for influencing projects to get the voters to vote them for the next election. You know, and this is where you just imagine 5 years of district development fund and all that is many, many millions. 10 million a year, 50 million. 50 million you put onto a village, my gosh, you just imagine people can have clean toilets, water supplies, and they can reduce the health the problem, diseases, and they can be stronger and demand less from the hospital, etc. But unfortunately, money has become the prime issue today, and that's why you don't trust a politician, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you, because the politician, a lot of us use the money to do development project to make sure we get the votes. You know, that's what we do. It's not about doing projects to lift the standard of the living of the people. Sad, but that's true.
Tok Stret, we talk about the issues that affect you. We ask the questions that is of your interest. We provide you the information. We provide you the answers. You have a choice. You decide.